Desde 1983, Nissan ensambla vehículos premiados para ti aquí en Estados Unidos. Y este verano, estamos comprometidos a mantener nuestra línea accesible y libre de nuevos aranceles. Es por eso que bajamos el MSRP en nuestro más vendido Rogue y Pathfinder, para que puedas tener el auto que quieres al precio que quieres, sabiendo que Nissan está aquí para ti en el evento de ofertas de verano de Nissan.
Por tiempo limitado hasta agotar existencias, ensamblados con partes importadas y de Estados Unidos.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a whole stack of sources you sent our way, all about the incredibly fast-moving world of cybersecurity.
So it certainly moves quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to unpack the current threats making headlines, look at the very real consequences when cybercrime hits, and importantly, explore what's actually being done to, build defenses, protect people and businesses.
And there's a big event coming up mentioned in the sources, too, which ties into that defense aspect.
Right, we'll get to that. Our mission today, same as always, cut through the noise, pull out the key insights from this material, and give you that shortcut to being properly informed on these topics, because they really do touch all of us.
Absolutely. And what's striking about these sources is the picture they paint. Threats that are, incredibly sophisticated on one hand, and sometimes surprisingly simple on the other, targeting everything from huge companies to, just private conversations.
Okay, let's start unpacking that with some of the recent incidents the material highlights. First one, a big name in retail, Victoria's Secret.
Yeah, that one stood out.
The sources make a point about their size, over $6 billion in sales last year. It sort of shows that being big doesn't make you safe, right?
Not at all. The material really underscores that. And the impact was immediate afterward. The sources mentioned their stock price took a hit, dropped over 10% when the news broke.
Ouch. And this wasn't just a one-off, according to the material.
No, it seems it was part of a series. The sources indicate a pattern targeting the retail sector specifically. Dior, Adidas, other big names were mentioned as being affected too.
Suggests a focused campaign, maybe?
Could be. Or exploiting a shared vulnerability. The material points towards a group reportedly specializing in APTs.
Advanced persistent threats. Okay, the material gives a definition for that, doesn't it?
It does. It describes APTs as, not your average smash-and-grab hackers. They're advanced, they're persistent.
Meaning they stick around.
Exactly. They use all sorts of techniques. The source mentions social engineering, intelligence gathering, automated tools to get in and then stay hidden for a long time, potentially.
Right.
And the material suggests they might go after companies in a specific sector, like fashion here, maybe because they use similar systems, like ARP platforms. That could explain the pattern across those brands.
Interesting. So specialized threats going after specific infrastructure weaknesses, that's a key point. But then the material shifts, right? It shows attacks aren't always that complex.
Precisely. It brings up another incident, totally different target.
Yeah.
The chief of staff of the White House.
Wow. Talk about high profile.
Exactly. And it shows even people in extremely sensitive roles are targets. But the method here, as described in the sources, wasn't some super complex hack.
No. What was it?
SMS spoofing. The sources explain how attackers can basically make text messages look like they're coming from the target's actual phone number.
Oh, that's tricky. Makes it seem totally legit.
Very much so. Builds instant trust. And the goal, according to the material, get the chief of staff's contacts to switch chats over to platforms like Telegram.
Why? To eavesdrop?
Potentially, yeah. Get sensitive info about the president, maybe. The sources even mentioned they tried to ask for money transfers. It sounds almost clumsy, but...
But if it looks like it's coming from the chief of staff... Scary. Who caught this?
The FBI, according to the sources. They discovered it.
So this example, it really highlights the power of, what? Social engineering, identity attacks.
Yeah, exactly. Even when the target likely has strong technical defenses, manipulating trust still works.
And that really brings it back to you, listening. These two cases, from the sources the massive company hit by a sophisticated APT and the top official targeted with simple SMS spoofing, they show the sheer range of threats.
Different targets, different methods.
Right. And that contrast, pulled from the material, just hammers home why awareness is vital for everyone, not just the tech folks. It's for you, no matter who you are or where you work. Threats are everywhere, and they get creative.
It's a good reminder that the attack surface, as they call it, is huge. Much bigger than we often think.
Which leads us perfectly into the next big theme from the sources. The real, tangible consequences of cybercrime. This isn't just data floating in the ether. The material talks about a major legal case in Spain.
Yes, the operation by the Audiencia Nacional. That one made waves. Multiple detentions involved.
And the sources name two individuals connected with it who really stand out. One is VAPASEC, described as a young hacker apparently already known to authorities.
That's what the material suggests, yeah. Previously detained.
And the other name, quite surprising, Francisco Martinez. The sources identify him as the former Secretary of State for Security under Mariano Rajoy.
Basically the number 2 at the Ministry of Interior at the time. A very senior position.
So what was the alleged crime? What did the sources say this operation uncovered?
Something pretty staggering, actually. A scheme involving a massive database. We're talking personal info, phone numbers, addresses for reportedly 99% of the entire Spanish population.
99%? That's almost unbelievable.
It's a huge number. And the material suggests it wasn't just basic contact info, potentially things like delivery orders too. Glovo was specifically mentioned as a possible data source in the material.
How on earth do you build a database like that? And then what do you do with it?
According to the sources, it was pieced together from lots of different data breaches, information leaked from ransomware attacks, other hacks, all compiled.
Okay.
Then, this massive data set was apparently turned into a searchable database, and access was sold. Subscription model, often paid for with cryptocurrency.
And making serious money from it.
Millions of euros, reportedly.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize that profit motive.
Which connects to a really important distinction the material makes here about label.
Yes, it pushes back strongly on just calling people involved in this kind of thing hackers.
Right. The sources argue, quite forcefully, that if you're stealing and selling data illegally, even if you're technically skilled, you're a criminal, a delinquent, not just a hacker.
It's about the intent and the action, not just the technical skill. The sources are very clear. This is crime, plain and simple. It tries to avoid any romanticized notion.
And the material even touches on why someone young and talented might go down this road.
Yeah, it points directly to the money. The lure of earning huge sums very quickly is cited as a major factor.
Makes sense, sadly. Were there attempts to, guide these skills in a better direction? The sources mentioned something about that for VAPASEC.
They do. Efforts were reportedly made to reroute him, as the material puts it, towards using his skills legally. But according to the sources, those efforts didn't succeed in this case, which led to these serious legal consequences.
It raises big questions, doesn't it, about spotting talent and channeling it positively.
Definitely.
So for you listening, this story from the sources is a real wake-up call on several levels. First, it shows just how profitable cybercrime is, which explains why it's so widespread.
The money trail.
Second, it makes it crystal clear. Your personal data isn't abstract. It's a hot commodity, actively bought and sold illegally.
Very tangible value to criminals.
And third, and this is crucial, there are real-world consequences. Arrests, prosecutions. These aren't virtual actions with no impact. They lead to very real outcomes.
The law is catching up, albeit slowly sometimes.
Okay, thinking about consequences that cross from digital to physical. Let's shift gears a bit. The sources also prompted some reflection on private conversations getting leaked. We see this in the news, right? WhatsApp messages, video calls, recordings popping up, especially in politics.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme. And the material digs into why this happens so often. It's not always, or even usually, about the platform itself being hacked directly.
Really? So it's not always a tech failure?
Often not, according to the sources. It points to how easy it is to record things now. Your phone has recording apps, there are tiny microphones, cameras everywhere.
Sure.
But maybe even more significant are the human factors. People just might not realize they could be recorded in a seemingly private chat. Or the leak comes from someone in the conversation.
Someone you trust.
Potentially. The sources mention motives like despecho spite, basically, or interest, personal gain. Very human reasons for betrayal.
That adds a whole other layer of risk. It's not just about hackers outside. It could be the person you're talking to.
Exactly. The material even includes that anecdote about Julian Assange.
Oh, yeah.
Reportedly using a white noise machine in the Ecuadorian embassy, specifically to try and defeat any hidden microphones.
Wow. An extreme measure, but it shows the level of perceived risk, even in a physical space.
It does.
So the big implication here for our everyday digital chats, as the sources highlight, is, well, it's profound. Platforms like WhatsApp are super convenient. Everyone uses them.
Ubiquitous.
But the sources argue they just aren't built for truly confidential stuff, especially high-stakes conversations. Anything you send or say, it could be recorded, screenshotted, leaked, used against you.
It relates to this idea mentioned in the sources, this sort of disconnection people feel between the online world and real life.
How so?
Like, people act or communicate online sometimes without fully grasping that those digital words or actions can have massive real-world fallout on their job, their reputation, their relationships.
Because it feels less real somehow. Less permanent?
Maybe less immediate, but the consequences when they hit are very real.
And this loops back to you, the listener, thinking about these points from the sources. Are you fully aware of how fragile your digital chats might be? Do you stop and think about the platform, the context, who you're talking to, before sharing something sensitive?
It's a challenge from the material, really, to be more conscious, more critical of our own digital habits, assuming privacy often isn't safe.
Okay, so we've looked at threats, consequences, the fragility of communication. Let's pivot now to action, defense, what's being done. The sources talk quite a bit about an upcoming event, Cyberwall.
Cyberwall. The material describes it as a pretty major annual event. It's run by the Spanish National Police Corps, held at their academy in Ávila.
Like where they train police officers?
Exactly. This is the 5th year. And the sources frame it as more than just a conference. It's positioned as a whole project focused on cybersecurity awareness and development.
And the theme this year, the sources say, is trusted identity, identidad confiable. Why that focus?
Well, the material explains it quite clearly. In the digital world, your identity isn't just your ID card anymore. It's how you prove who you are online, securely and verifiably.
Okay.
And that digital identity, the sources argue, is the gateway to everything, your digital life, your money online, your reputation, your rights. So protecting it is fundamental. It's the bedrock.
Makes sense. You can't do anything securely online without knowing who's who. What's new or key about Cyberwall this year, according to the material?
For several things mentioned. First, they're marking an anniversary, 30 years, of the police's Applied Technological Investigation Unit, founded way back in '95.
Wow. 3 decades of police cyber work.
Yeah, and the sources mention a timeline exhibit showing how things have evolved. Quite interesting, I imagine. A big new thing highlighted is the first ever Cyberwall Junior. That's happening on June 6th.
Junior, for kids.
For young people, yeah. Secondary school, first year of high school level. They're expecting over 760 students, the material says.
That sounds fantastic. What's the goal there, according to the sources?
Several goals listed. Teach safe online habits, obviously. Help them spot threats. Protect their own digital identity. But also raise awareness of what the police do in cybercrime.
And maybe inspire some future cyber defenders. Or police officers.
Exactly. Sparking vocations is mentioned. The material notes specific topics, too, like AI with an expert from Google speaking, and also the general dangers and opportunities online, discussed by someone from the Association of Technological Experts.
Getting that info to kids early seems crucial, given everything we've discussed. What about businesses? Anything specific for them?
Yes, another practical element. Workshops on digital first aid for SMEs, small and medium businesses.
Digital first aid, what does that mean?
These are run by Insive, collaborating with the police. The idea, the sources explain, is to give small businesses those basic, immediate steps reflexes, almost for what to do in the first few critical minutes of a cyber attack.
Like who to call first, that kind of thing.
Precisely. The material specifically mentions the 01SYN Insibe number as a key resource. It uses the example of an apagon, a blackout where people panic because systems are down and they just don't know the first step.
That immediate response can make a huge difference for a small company, knowing that first call.
Absolutely. Survival, sometimes. The sources also give some fascinating insights into how the police themselves are training officers in cyber skills at the academy.
Oh, yeah. What do they say?
It talks about the level of intellectual capital among new recruits now. People joining the police with PhDs in AI or lots of private sector tech experience.
Really? Joining the police force?
Apparently so. And the sources stress the police are actively identifying this talent and funneling it into specialized cyber units. They're expecting a brutal explosion of police cyber expertise soon.
Sounds like they're serious about building capability.
Very. And Cyberwall isn't just about learning. It seems it's a recruitment place, too.
How so?
The sources mention big tech companies. Amazon, Google, Microsoft are participating for the first time this year. And not just for PR. They're actively scouting talent there.
So job opportunities.
Yeah. A pen testing competition is mentioned specifically with potential job offers for the winners.
Wow. So it's a real mix. Public sector, private sector, education, jobs. What kind of sessions are there?
The material describes a real variety. Talks. Yeah. And they're categorized by technical level, which is helpful. Low, medium, high. workshops, competitions, covering topics like online fraud, crypto, disinformation, critical infrastructure, adapting to the NIS2 directive.
That's a wide range. Who goes?
People from all sorts of sectors, different countries too, according to the sources. And because it's at the police academy, attendees get to see the actual training facilities.
That's pretty unique access. If someone listening is interested, what are the practical details from the sources?
Main event is June 3rd to 5th. Cyberwall Junior is the 6th. It's open to the public. And the material says you can just register on site, show your ID at the Academy in Ávila.
Good to know. So this event, Cyberwall, as the sources present it, it really represents concrete action, doesn't it? Addressing the threats we talked about.
Yeah, it's the proactive side. Training, awareness, building defenses. It's an opportunity, as the material suggests, for you, the listener, maybe to learn more, see career paths, understand the police role better, and just generally take steps to protect yourself or your business.
It shows people are working on solutions.
Definitely. Not just reacting, but building resilience.
Okay, well, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've covered quite a journey based on these sources, from specific attacks and legal cases showing the stark reality of cybercrime.
And its consequences.
Through reflecting on how fragile our digital privacy can often be.
More fragile than we might think.
And ending with a look at efforts like Cyberwall, which highlight the work going into training, awareness, and building those defenses.
I think the core message coming through all the material we looked at is pretty clear. Your digital identity, it's not secondary anymore, it's central.
The gateway, as the sources put it.
Exactly. To your online assets, reputation, rights. And it needs just as much conscious care and protection as your physical identity, your wallet, your house keys.
Well said. And that leaves us with one final thought to leave you with, something that really emerges from these sources, this idea that the digital world isn't virtual in the sense of being unreal or separate.
Not at all.
It has solid, real-world consequences for your data, your money, your reputation, even, as we saw, potentially your freedom. So the provocative question is, knowing this, seeing how blurred that line between digital and physical has become, how does that change how you choose to act and protect yourself online from now on?
It really demands a shift in perspective, doesn't it? How we engage with these spaces.
Something to think about. We'll actually be building on one topic we touched on today, artificial intelligence, in our next deep dive.
Ah, the big one.
Yeah. We'll be drawing on insights from an expert source mentioned in the material Lambert from Panda Security to explore AI's role and its implications for cybersecurity.
It's definitely reshaping things, both attack and defense. Looking forward to that.
Us too. We hope you'll join us then.
Desde 1983, Nissan ensambla vehículos premiados para ti aquí en Estados Unidos. Y este verano, estamos comprometidos a mantener nuestra línea accesible y libre de nuevos aranceles. Es por eso que bajamos el MSRP en nuestro más vendido Rogue y Pathfinder, para que puedas tener el auto que quieres al precio que quieres, sabiendo que Nissan está aquí para ti en el evento de ofertas de verano de Nissan.
Por tiempo limitado hasta agotar existencias, ensamblados con partes importadas y de Estados Unidos.